All right, I am ready. Today we are diving into our principles of democracy and going to be completing our first standard. So I'm going to open up my window and going through this. So just to start out, there are some important years in history that, unlike most people, Miss Lamar actually memorizes these things. If they ever came up on Jeopardy, I could probably guess what happened on these dates. So what I have here, unless you like to memorize dates, there isn't a lot that you need to remember. There are these dates that I have listed here that actually are related to not just U.S. history, but are representative democracy. So the years are 1215, 1492 doesn't necessarily have to do with the representative democracy, but I want to throw it in there. 1517, 1619, and 1620. So as you're sitting there thinking to yourself, okay, what happened on these things? I just want to kind of do a quick little refresher. So in 1215, it's a way long time ago before they even realized that the United States of America or the new nation existed. There were some English nobles that actually forced King John to sign what's called the Magna Carta, known as the Great Charter. And this said that the king had to follow the same laws that he was making and expecting the citizens to follow. And there's a little bit more to that, but that's it in a nutshell. And you can actually see a copy of one of these original documents in the National Archives in Washington, D.C. It's right through the entrance after security if you were going to see the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution. It's really kind of a cool thing to see since it dates back to 1215. Some people actually, when they go to visit England, go to the castle where this was signed as well. I have not been there. 1492, Christopher Columbus sailed the, everyone can finish, ocean blue. And so the idea that the New World is discovered, and then obviously starting in the 1600s, people started to colonize or take over this land, which starts the rest of the kind of stuff. In 1517, another thing that kind of relates to representative democracy, or this idea where people have rights if they don't like things or if they want to change things, was with Martin Luther. And in England, he actually nailed his 95 Theses to the church door, protesting, okay, the strict teachings of the Catholic Church. And so this also then led to people that wanted to have religious freedom, obviously about 100 years later, having that chance to come to the New World. In 1607 is when Jamestown becomes the first English settlement, but in 1619 specifically is when the first representative assembly met to write some of the colony's laws. And then we have in 1620, when the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth Rock in Massachusetts, they realized they were not in Kansas anymore. Okay, I know they're not in Kansas, but they realized that they landed in the wrong spot. And so since they were supposed to land in Jamestown, which would have been under the control of the King of England, they said, well, we are going to have to agree to some rules since the king doesn't control this land. And so they actually created what's called the Mayflower Compact, and a compact is an agreement. So if we agree to do something, we might have a pact or a compact. There's a date in U.S. history that actually is more important, and I'm sure that some of you can probably guess. It was something that happened this past summer, happens every year. And it's a date that changed America, not only America, but the entire world. And it's a day that King George III of England didn't think that important at the time, but after the citizens or the colonists fought a war and won, the king realized how important this date is. And so the date is July 4th, 1776. It marks the birth date of the United States of America. This is known as Independence Day. Now, it's not just the day that the Declaration that was approved that makes it important, but it's the words that make all the difference. And so it's the words that you're going to be looking at as you get to work today. And so this actual presentation, I will have it in your Schoology. So there's a little video clip here. There's another video I would like for you to watch. I do have the words of the declaration, and it's in that video, so I'm not going to read it to you, but these things are available for you, and it will help you to complete your assignment. There are 4 important ideas in the Declaration of Independence, and you'll notice that I usually abbreviate as D of I, so Declaration of Independence. And so these 4 ideas are things that still are discussed today, especially the idea of the freedom. It's very important in the idea of democracy in the United States. This is another thing I like to point out, so that this is a painting of the Declaration of Independence, and this painting is in the Capitol Rotunda in Washington, D.C., and so this is where the U.S. senators and U.S. representatives meet. This is in the middle of the building, and so if a senator needed to walk to the other side for some reason, or some of their aides, they would actually be walking through the rotunda with the dome, and in this round area there are paintings that depict important events in U.S. history. And this painting is one of my favorites, and it wasn't until a few years back during one of the visits there that a congressman from Texas actually had pointed out to me something that I hadn't noticed before. And if you look closely, and it's hard to see obviously here, but the painter here actually has, it seems like Thomas Jefferson seems to be stepping on John Adams' foot or toe in this painting, and it could kind of symbolize the relationship because they were enemies. And if you pull it up if you Google it, you can zoom in on it. Some people, historians, will say that's not actually a true thing, but when I look at it with my own eyes, I believe it. This is the Declaration, just a little outline. I also have a copy in my classroom, and so this is up on the board, and so this is more condensed version of it. And this is actually broken down into parts. And I'm going to show that to you second. So the Declaration has a purpose. It talked about how the government should work, and then the date. And then it's broken into 4 parts. And these 4 parts you're going to actually be diving into today. The other thing that I like to point out is that the Declaration of Independence is similar to if you were to write a note to your parents telling them that you were going to break away. So here's an example, and you can, I'll read it to you. Dear Mom and Dad, I'm writing this letter to you to let you know that I feel it's time that I go out into the world on my own, and I thought you should know why I feel this way. This would be similar to the preamble in the Declaration of Independence. You're telling your parents why you're writing to them. I believe that you are no longer above me and that I have the right to take care of myself. This is the part, or the second part of the Declaration, where the colonists list what they feel are natural rights. And there was a lot of research and history researching that went into this. The third part is when they're going to list all the things that the king did wrong, the grievances, but this is where you are telling your parents what you don't like anymore. You're always telling me what I can and can't do. You tell me what time I have to be home at night. You tell me that I need to put part of my babysitting money in savings. You are always telling me that I need to get good grades. You send the maid into my room to clean it without my permission. These are the grievances. And then, so because of all these things, you are resolving to tell your parents, or like the colonists were telling the king, that they're not going to be part of them. So you're going to tell them what you're going to do about it. So the final part of the letter would be, so because of the above mentioned grievances, I'm going to move out on my own. Love, your loving daughter. I'm sure that would go over really well with your parents.